Throwaway because some of our mutual friends use Reddit. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 32F, for 6 years, together for 9. From the outside, we looked like one of those solid couples, shared apartment, decent jobs, a dog, occasional vacations we posted about like everything was fine. But if I'm being honest, things started feeling off about a year ago. At first, it was small stuff. She'd snap at me over nothing, like I'd forget to take out the trash, and suddenly it turned into a full-on lecture about how I never listen and always disappoint her. That wasn't her before. She used to be sarcastic, yeah, but not sharp like that. Not cutting. Then came the lies. And I don't mean huge, obvious ones at first. Just little inconsistencies. She'd say she was out with a coworker, but then mention details later that didn't line up. Or she'd tell me she was working late, but come home smelling like a bar, alcohol, perfume that wasn't hers, sometimes even smoke. She doesn't smoke. I remember one night specifically. She came home past midnight, tossed her keys on the table, and when I asked where she'd been, she rolled her eyes and said, "God, do I need to report every second of my life to you now?" That hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't even accusing her of anything. Not yet. That's the thing, I didn't want to suspect anything. I kept telling myself I was overthinking. That maybe she was just stressed. Work had been rough for her, and I tried to be understanding. But then her phone became basically glued to her hand. Like, she used to leave it around all the time. Now? Face down. Always. Password changed. Took it to the bathroom. Even in the shower sometimes, like she was expecting something urgent at all times. And yeah, I noticed. I just didn't realize yet how bad it was going to get. Things didn't escalate all at once. It was more like this slow, creeping shift that I kept trying to explain away until I couldn't anymore. A couple weeks after the report every second comment, she started picking fights out of nowhere. And I mean nowhere. I'd ask something normal like, "Hey, are we still going to my parents' place this weekend?" And she'd snap back with, "Why are you always trying to control my schedule?" It didn't make sense. It felt like she was rewriting reality in real time. And the lies got sloppier. One night she told me she had a late team meeting. Cool, happens. Around 9 p.m., I texted her just to ask if she wanted me to save dinner. No response. Midnight rolls around, still nothing. She walks in at 12:30, slightly tipsy, and I just casually ask, "Long meeting?" She says, "Yeah, dragged on forever." You know how these things are. But here's the problem, earlier that evening, I had scrolled past an Instagram story from one of her coworkers. It was a group of them at a bar. My wife was in the background, laughing, drink in hand. Timestamp? Around 9:15 p.m. So I just looked at her and said, "Funny." Because it looked more like a bar than a meeting. She froze. Not for long, maybe half a second, but I saw it. Then she immediately rolled her eyes and said, "Oh my God, seriously?" We went out after. I didn't think I needed to give you a minute-by-minute breakdown. But that wasn't what she said earlier. Not even close. I remember feeling this weird mix of confusion and embarrassment. Like I was being made to feel stupid for noticing something that didn't add up. And the scary part is, I actually started doubting myself. Like maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this is just what long-term relationships look like when things get a bit rough. But deep down, something didn't sit right. And that feeling? It didn't go away. It got louder. After that night, I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. Not in a paranoid, checking every move kind of way, at least not yet. More like I couldn't unsee things anymore. Once you notice the pattern, it's everywhere. Her schedule stopped making sense. She'd say she had early meetings, but wouldn't set an alarm. She'd claim she was exhausted, but stay up texting someone until 2 a.m., screen lighting up her face while she angled it away from me like I wasn't right there. And the tone? God, the tone changed completely. She got colder. Short replies. Annoyed sighs. That look people give you when they've already checked out but haven't told you yet. Every conversation felt like I was interrupting her real life. One night I tried to actually talk about it. I said something like, "Hey, I feel like we've been distant lately. Is everything okay between us?" She didn't even look up from her phone. Just goes, "You're overthinking again." That word, again, stuck with me. Like she'd already decided I was the problem. I pushed a little, not aggressively, just honest. "I'm not trying to fight. I just feel like something's off." That's when she snapped. She put the phone down, looked straight at me, and said, "Maybe if you weren't so insecure all the time, things wouldn't feel off." Ever thought about that? It hit like a punch. Because it wasn't just defensive, it was calculated. Like she knew exactly how to flip it on me. And here's the messed up part, I actually started apologizing. I apologized for bringing up how I felt. That night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone, occasionally smirking at something I couldn't see. I remember thinking, when did we become this? But even then, I still wasn't ready to believe she was cheating. I told myself it was stress. Miscommunication. A rough patch. I was wrong. And I was about to find out in the worst possible way. The turning point wasn't some dramatic, movie-style moment. No mysterious phone call, no lipstick on a collar. It was, stupidly ordinary. A Tuesday morning. She was running late for work, rushing around, half-dressed, stressed, snapping at me because she couldn't find her keys, they were literally in her hand. At some point, she grabbed her bag and left in a hurry. And for the first time in months, she forgot her phone. I didn't even notice at first. I was making coffee when I saw it on the kitchen counter, face up. No lock screen lighting up, no buzzing, just sitting there. And I swear, I hesitated. I'm not proud of what I did next. But I also know most people in my position would have done the same. I picked it up. At first, I told myself I'd just check if she had any urgent calls or messages, just in case. But the second the screen lit up, I saw it. A notification. A name I didn't recognize. No contact photo. Just a message preview. Last night was dangerous. Can't stop thinking about you. My stomach dropped so fast it actually made me dizzy. I stood there for a good 10 seconds, just staring at the screen like it might change if I blinked enough. It didn't. And then, like something snapped in my brain, I unlocked the phone. Yeah. She changed her password, but she didn't change the one for her old iPad we still had synced. Muscle memory. Same code. And just like that, everything I'd been trying not to see, was right there. Messages. Weeks of them. At first it was flirty. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Then it got explicit. Plans. Times. Places. Excuses that suddenly made perfect sense. All those late meetings. Drinks with coworkers. Staying at a friend's place because it's too late to drive. Every single one lined up. And the worst part? It wasn't just one time. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a whole second life. I remember scrolling, hands shaking, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. There were pictures too, not full-on explicit, but enough. Enough to make it real. Enough to make me feel like I was looking at a stranger. My wife. Talking to someone else like I didn't exist. Laughing. Flirting. Wanting. I don't even know how long I stood there. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 30. But at some point, the shock turned into something else. Something colder. Because now I knew. And there was no going back from that. I didn't confront her right away. That might sound weird, but once the shock settled, something in me just shifted. Like my brain switched from panic to observe. I needed to be sure, completely, undeniably sure, before blowing everything up. So I put the phone back exactly where it was. When she came back 20 minutes later, breathing fast, acting annoyed, I was sitting on the couch like nothing happened. She goes, "I forgot my phone, have you seen it?" All casual, like the morning hadn't just handed me the truth on a silver platter. I pointed to the counter. "Yeah. You left it." She grabbed it quickly. Too quickly. Checked it right away. That same half-second pause I'd seen before. It was back. Then she relaxed. "Thanks," she said, already scrolling. No explanation. No suspicion that I might have seen anything. And that? That pissed me off more than I expected. Not the cheating, not yet. The confidence. The assumption that I was still completely in the dark. That day, I barely functioned at work. My head was just replaying everything I'd read. Every message. Every lie. But I didn't text her. Didn't call her out. Nothing. Instead, I started connecting dots. I checked our shared calendar, those late meetings. Pattern. Same days every week. I looked back at old messages between us. Times she said she was too tired to talk or crashing early. Cross-referenced them in my head with what I saw on her phone. It all lined up disturbingly well. And then, because apparently the universe wanted to make this as brutal as possible, I got another piece of the puzzle that same evening. She texted me around 6 p.m. Running late again. Don't wait up. Short. Cold. Familiar. But now I knew what that actually meant. I replied, "All good." That was it. No questions. No pushback. And then I did something I never thought I'd do in my life. I followed her. Not in some dramatic, movie-style chase. Just, quietly. Kept my distance. Told myself I'd turn back at any moment. I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew where this was going. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. And honestly, I wish I hadn't. I followed her for about 25 minutes. Far enough to not be obvious, close enough to not lose her in traffic. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight they actually started to hurt, but I didn't loosen up. It felt like if I did, I'd lose my nerve and turn around. She didn't go anywhere near her office. Not even close. Instead, she pulled into a smaller side street near a row of bars and restaurants, somewhere we'd actually been together once or twice. Casual place. Nothing special. Which somehow made it worse. She parked. Sat in the car for a second. Then she smiled. Not a polite, everyday smile. Not the forced one she'd been giving me lately. A real one. The kind I hadn't seen in months. That alone felt like a punch to the chest. A minute later, another car pulled up behind her. A guy got out. Mid-30s maybe. Taller than me. Confident posture. The kind of guy who doesn't hesitate when he moves, like he knows exactly where he belongs. And then it happened. She stepped out of the car, saw him, and without even a second of hesitation, she walked straight up to him and kissed him. Not awkward. Not uncertain. Comfortable. Practiced. Like this wasn't new. I don't even remember breathing in that moment. Everything just went quiet. Like my brain couldn't process the sound anymore. They laughed about something right after, like it was just another normal evening. Like they hadn't just detonated my entire life in front of me. I stayed in the car. Didn't move. Didn't confront them. I just watched. Watched them walk into the bar together. Watched the door close behind them. And I sat there, staring at that door like an idiot, hoping, stupidly, that they'd come back out and this would somehow make sense. It didn't. After maybe 10 minutes, the shock turned into something else. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Because up until that exact moment, there was still a tiny part of me that wondered if I was overreacting. If maybe the texts meant less than they looked like. If maybe there was some explanation I hadn't considered. There wasn't. I had seen enough. More than enough. And sitting there in that car, watching the place where my wife was inside with someone else, I realized something that hit harder than anything else so far. She wasn't just lying to me. She was choosing this. Over and over again. I didn't go inside. I know some people would've, stormed in, made a scene, confronted them right there. Part of me wanted that. Badly. I pictured it for a second, walking up to their table, watching her face drop, forcing the truth out into the open. But I didn't. Because the version of her I saw in that parking lot? The way she smiled at him, the way she kissed him like it was second nature, that wasn't someone who'd panic and apologize. That was someone who'd spin it. Twist it. Turn me into the crazy one. So I stayed in the car. And I waited. Not for them, honestly, I didn't want to see more. I waited for myself to calm down enough to think clearly. After about 30 minutes, I started the engine and drove home. The silence in the apartment when I walked in felt different. Heavier. Like the place already knew something had ended, even if nothing had been said out loud yet. Her stuff was everywhere. Shoes by the door. Her jacket on the chair. That stupid mug she always used, still in the sink. Normal life. Fake life. I sat down on the couch and just stared at nothing for a while. My brain kept replaying the same few seconds on a loop, her smile, the kiss, the way she didn't hesitate. That hesitation, or lack of it, kept sticking with me. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine. And suddenly, a lot of things clicked into place in a way that made me feel physically sick. All the times she accused me of being distant. All the arguments she started out of nowhere. All the times she made me feel like I was the one ruining things. It wasn't random. It was strategy. Create distance. Shift blame. Keep me off balance so I wouldn't look too closely. And the worst part? It worked. For months, I kept trying to fix things, thinking I was part of the problem. Meanwhile, she was living a whole separate life. At some point, I got up and walked into the bedroom. Opened her closet. Everything looked the same. But now it felt like I was looking at a stranger's stuff. I picked up one of her jackets, the one she wore earlier, and for a second, I just stood there holding it, realizing how little I actually knew about what she'd been doing when she wasn't around. That's when the anger finally started creeping in. Slow at first. Then louder. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation. And I wasn't going to sit quietly through that anymore. By the time she got home, I wasn't pacing or raging like I expected I would be. I was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes after something breaks and doesn't go back together. She walked in around 12:40 a.m., same as usual. Keys on the table, shoes off, that familiar routine like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey," she said, not even really looking at me. I was sitting on the couch, lights on, just waiting. "Hey," I replied. She froze for half a second. That wasn't normal. I was usually in bed by then. You're up late, she said, already cautious. Yeah, I shrugged. Couldn't sleep. She nodded like that explained everything, then headed toward the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Took out a bottle of water. I watched her the whole time. Long meeting? I asked. There it was again. That tiny pause. Then, yeah. Brutal. Same tone. Same lie. And something in me just snapped into place. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse her outright. I just said, very evenly. Must have been exhausting. Kissing him probably didn't help. Silence. She slowly closed the fridge door. Turned around. And for the first time since all this started, she actually looked at me. Really looked. What are you talking about? She said. Not shocked. Not scared. Defensive. Default setting. I let out a small breath. I followed you. That hit. Not emotionally, strategically. I could see it in her face. Her brain was already moving, calculating, figuring out what I knew, what I didn't. That's actually insane, she said, shaking her head. You followed me? Seriously? That's the issue here. There it was again. Not denial of what she did. Just immediate deflection. I almost laughed. The issue, I said, still calm, is that you lied. Again. And I watched you meet him. I watched you kiss him. So don't, I stopped myself, clenched my jaw. Don't try to flip this on me. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting, she said flatly. Overreacting. To watching my wife kiss another man. I stared at her, trying to process how someone could say that with a straight face. It's not what you think, she added quickly. We're just close. It's complicated. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. It's actually very simple. And for the first time, I felt something shift completely. Not confusion. Not hope. Just clarity. Because she wasn't even trying to tell the truth. She was trying to manage me. At some point, the conversation stopped feeling like a confrontation and started feeling like a negotiation I never agreed to be part of. She shifted her tone. Less sharp, more controlled. Look, she said, running a hand through her hair like she was the one exhausted, I didn't plan for this to happen. I didn't interrupt. I met him through work. We just clicked. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That line again. It wasn't supposed to. Like this whole thing just accidentally unfolded over weeks of lies, secret meetings, and, let's be honest, intentional choices. You had plenty of chances to stop, I said. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. It's not that simple. I leaned back against the couch, studying her. It really is. And then came the part that honestly caught me off guard. She looked straight at me and said, I didn't want to lose what we have. I blinked. You mean the marriage you've been actively cheating in? She sighed, like I was missing something obvious. You're reducing it to that. Reducing it. I almost admired the mental gymnastics. So what, I said, you wanted both. Silence. Not denial. Just silence. And that was the answer. I let that sit for a second before asking the question I didn't even realize I needed answered until that moment. Are you still seeing him? Another pause. Longer this time. She looked away, then back at me. Yes. No hesitation now. No attempt to soften it. Just, yes. Something in my chest tightened, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't even sharp anymore. It was dull. Heavy. Like the final piece of something falling into place. "Okay," I said quietly. She frowned slightly. "Okay, what?" I stood up. "Okay, now I know exactly where we are." She watched me carefully now, like she was trying to figure out what I was about to do. "Don't do something dramatic," she said. "We can talk about this. Figure it out." That word again. We. Like we were still a team. Like she hadn't been living a separate life this whole time. I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "You already figured it out. You just didn't tell me." And for the first time that night, she didn't have a response ready. The silence after that statement wasn't peaceful. It was thick. Almost suffocating. She finally broke it first. "So what, you're just going to throw everything away?" she asked, voice rising slightly again. 6 years, and you're just done because of one mistake?" I actually stopped moving when she said that. "One mistake," I repeated. She nodded quickly, like she was trying to lock that version of the story in place before it fell apart. "It got out of hand, okay? I didn't plan it." "I didn't." "You didn't plan it," I cut in, "but you kept it going. 4 months." Her mouth opened, then closed. That was the thing. She couldn't deny the timeline. Not anymore. I paced a little now, not out of anger, but because standing still felt wrong. "You lied to me every day," I said. "You looked me in the eye and called me insecure while you were meeting him." She shook her head. "That's not fair." I laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. "Not fair?" I looked at her. "Do you hear yourself?" She straightened up, defensive mode kicking in again. "You've been distant too. You stopped trying months ago." There it was again. The rewrite. I stopped pacing. "Really?" I said quietly. "That's your explanation? I made you do this?" "I didn't say that," she snapped. But she basically did. And something about that realization just removed the last bit of emotional chaos from me. It didn't hurt the same anymore. It just made sense in a very ugly way. "You know what's wild?" I said after a moment. "I actually spent months thinking I was the problem." That made her pause. I continued. "I apologize to you for feeling ignored. For asking questions. For noticing things didn't add up." She looked away. "And all that time," I said, "you were already gone." That word, gone, hung in the air differently. Not physically. Just emotionally. Like she'd checked out long before I ever caught up. She finally spoke again, softer this time. "I didn't want to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said. "But you did it anyway." And this time, she didn't argue. She stood there for a moment after that, like she was waiting for me to soften. When I didn't, her expression shifted again, this time into something almost desperate. "We can fix this," she said quickly. "We don't have to end everything over this. People work through worse." That, we, again. Like she hadn't already made a series of choices that erased it. I sat back down on the edge of the couch, not because I was calming down, but because I was tired in a way I didn't have words for. "Stop saying we," I said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "There is no we in what you've been doing." That landed harder than anything I'd said so far. Her face tightened. "So that's it? You're just going to punish me forever for a mistake?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "You keep calling it a mistake like it happened to you." That made her go quiet again. I continued. "You didn't slip once. You didn't get confused once. You built a second relationship. You maintained it. You lied every day to keep it going. Her jaw clenched. And now, I added, you're upset I found out. That finally cracked her composure a bit. This is not who I am, she said, almost like she was trying to convince herself more than me. I let out a breath. That's the part one can't get past, I said honestly. Because I thought I knew who you were too. That shifted something in the room. Not in a dramatic way, but in a final way. Like the argument was reaching its natural endpoint. She sat down now, slowly, like her energy had run out of places to go. We sat there in silence for a bit. Then she said, quieter. So what happens now? That question didn't feel like negotiation anymore. It felt like reality finally catching up. I didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time, I actually meant what I was about to say. I don't know, I said. And I realized I wasn't saying it out of confusion. I was saying it because I was done trying to control the outcome of something she already ended. She looked at me like she didn't expect that answer. Not anger this time. Not deflection. Just uncertainty. That's it? She asked quietly. You don't even want to try? I shook my head slightly. It's not about trying anymore, I said. Trying only works when both people are in it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, she looked almost human again. Not the version of her that had been lying and rewriting reality for months, but the one I used to know. Then she said something that pulled me right back out of that illusion. You're acting like I destroyed everything, she said. Like you were perfect this whole time. There it was again. The shift. Even now, even at the edge of losing everything, she couldn't fully step out of that framing where I was partly responsible for her decisions. I nodded slowly. I'm not perfect, I said. But I didn't cheat on you. I didn't lie to you every day. I didn't build another relationship behind your back. That made her look down. Silence stretched again. I stood up. I think you should stay somewhere else tonight, I said. Her head snapped up. What? I don't want to keep doing this conversation right now, I said. And I'm not going to pretend everything's normal. She stared at me like she was trying to decide whether I was serious. You're kicking me out? She asked. No, I corrected. I'm asking you to leave tonight so we don't say something worse than we already have. That distinction didn't seem to help her mood. She stood up abruptly. This is unbelievable, she said. You're making me the villain like I'm some stranger. I didn't respond. Because arguing that point felt pointless now. She grabbed her phone, her keys, and started moving toward the door. At the doorway, she paused. I didn't want it to end like this, she said. I looked at her. Neither did I replied. And for once, that wasn't a lie from either of us. She hesitated one last second. Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time in months, the apartment felt completely quiet. The silence after she left didn't feel like relief. It felt like impact delay. Like my brain understood something big had happened, but hadn't decided how to process it yet. I stood there for a while in the hallway, just staring at the door she'd walked through. Waiting for something, regret, panic, maybe even the urge to stop her. Nothing came. Instead, I walked back into the living room and sat down again. The same couch. Same room. Same life, except it wasn't the same anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept replaying everything, but it wasn't the cheating anymore that looped in my head. It was all the smaller things leading up to it. The tone shifts. The sudden anger. The way she made me feel like I was constantly too much for asking normal questions. The way I apologized for things I didn't do wrong just to keep peace. And I realized something I hadn't been able to see while I was inside it. This didn't start with the other guy. It started long before that. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. Her texts. At first, angry. You didn't have to humiliate me like that. Then, defensive. You pushed me away for months. Then, softer. Can we just talk? I didn't respond to any of them. Because I knew that cycle. I'd been inside it for a year, maybe longer without noticing. Around midday, I got a call. I let it ring out. Then another. Then a message from her. I ended things with him. That one hit differently. Not because it fixed anything. But because it showed me she still thought the problem was him. Not the lying. Not the pattern. Not the choices. Just the external piece she could remove to reset everything back to normal. I put the phone face down on the table. And for the first time since I found out, I stopped feeling like I was in the middle of a storm. I started feeling like I was standing after it had already passed. And what was left was everything I had to decide next. The next few days were quieter than I expected, but not peaceful, more like a suspended state where nothing fully settled yet. She kept trying to reach me. Calls. Messages. Voice notes I didn't listen to. Each one slightly different in tone, like she was cycling through versions of what might finally work: anger, regret, blame, softness. I didn't respond. Not out of spite. More like I realized every conversation with her so far had one constant: it always bent back into confusion for me and control for her. So I needed distance that wasn't negotiable. On the third day, she showed up at the apartment. I didn't let her in right away. We stood on opposite sides of the door, like that physical barrier finally matched what had already happened emotionally. I ended it, she said again through the door, quieter this time. I told you that. I know, I replied. A pause. Then she added, so can we just try again? That word again. Try. Like we were resetting a game instead of dealing with consequences. I leaned my forehead lightly against the door for a second before speaking. I don't think there's anything to go back to, I said. Silence. Not arguing this time. Just silence. Then her voice, lower. So that's it? 6 years and you're just done? I closed my eyes for a moment. It wasn't the number that mattered anymore. It was everything that happened inside it. I'm not doing this version of us again, I said. That seemed to land differently. No rebuttal. No blame shift. Just a long pause on the other side of the door. Then she said something quieter than anything she'd said so far. I don't know how to be alone in this. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger hearing her. Just clarity. Because that was exactly what I had been, alone in it, while she was building something else. I can't fix that for you, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. Then footsteps. She left. And that was it. No final dramatic scene. No resolution conversation. No clean ending. Just a marriage that didn't explode, but slowly stopped being real long before either of us fully admitted it. Later, when people asked me what I learned from it, I didn't have some dramatic lesson. Just this. If someone has to lie to you consistently to maintain the relationship isn't stable, it's already split in two. You're just living in the version they show you. And eventually, that version runs out of places to hide.